one sentence, just one, that instantly shifts a man's entire perception of you. Not because it's clever, but because it comes from a woman who knows her worth. Say this once, and you'll never have to chase respect again. Are you ready to learn the line that makes a man stop, listen, and never look at you the same way again? There is a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that her words are not just expressions of emotion, but instruments of influence. The way you speak, the energy behind your tone, the pause before a response. These are not just soft skills. They are silent signals of your inner strength. Many believe that power is loud, that to be heard you must shout, that to be respected you must demand. But there is a deeper power, quiet, rooted, unshakable. And it begins the moment you learn how to speak from your center, not your chaos. Today, I want to invite you into a new kind of communication, one that doesn't just impress a man but awakens something in him. Respect, reverence, stillness. When a woman speaks with calm certainty, without defending or performing, a man listens not just with his ears, but with his whole presence. Because something in him recognizes that this isn't manipulation. It's not noise. It's truth. Now, what is that? One thing you say that changes everything. It's not a phrase you memorize. It's a tone, a clarity, an energy. And once you understand how to shape it, you will never need to repeat yourself to feel heard again. Welcome to Self-Mastery, your space for real wisdom and inner growth. Subscribe and remember name of our YouTube channel, Self-Mastery, because others may copy the voice, but the truth lives here. Let us begin. There is a moment in every woman's life when she realizes that her greatest strength is not found in how loudly she speaks, how passionately she argues, or how deeply she pleads for understanding. It is found in her silence, calm, deliberate, centered, and the clarity that radiates from within her. That clarity becomes the atmosphere in which respect either takes root or falls away. You see, the feminine is not meant to compete with noise. It was never designed to push, pull, or chase. Its true power is magnetic, not aggressive. And when a woman speaks from a place of deep emotional calm, her words become commands, not because she demands obedience, but because she radiates certainty. Emotional chaos weakens that power. Clarity sharpens it. Think about the last time you tried to explain yourself repeatedly to someone who had already made up their mind. The more you spoke, the more drained you felt. That isn't communication, it's erosion. When the mind is unsettled, the heart speaks in broken sentences, unsure of itself. But when the mind is anchored, like a lake undisturbed by wind, every word that surfaces carries depth, carries weight. The brain, particularly in men, is wired to respond more to energy than to language. This is a fact supported by neuroscience. Mirror neurons in the brain are more attuned to tone, facial expressions, and body language than they are to the content of speech. That means a man listens more to how you feel than to what you say. A calm woman who speaks with emotional neutrality, even when setting a boundary, triggers a very different psychological reaction than a woman who speaks with emotional volatility. One activates respect, the other activates resistance or dismissal. Let me offer you a real story. A woman named Elisa had spent years trying to gain the respect of her partner. Every disagreement turned into a lengthy emotional negotiation. She would cry, plead, raise her voice, and beg for him to see her value. But the more she poured out her heart, the less he seemed to care. Until one day, she changed everything, not by becoming colder, but by becoming still. When he crossed a boundary, she simply said, "I'm not available for this kind of interaction anymore. Let me know when you're ready to talk differently." And then she walked away. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in absolute stillness. That night, for the first time in years, he followed her, not to argue, but to listen. What changed? Her emotional frequency. She stopped trying to be understood and started honoring her own inner knowing. And in doing so, she allowed her presence to speak louder than her words. That is what men feel the most: your presence, your composure, your clarity. Now let's go deeper. The sentence that realigns self-respect with boundaries isn't dramatic. It's simple. It may sound like, "That doesn't work for me," or "I don't accept being spoken to that way," or even, "Why can continue this when you're ready to be respectful?" Notice the key ingredient. No accusation, no insult, no venom. Just clarity. Just self-ownership. There's a profound elegance in this way of speaking. It doesn't attempt to control the other person. It simply defines the space in which you will participate. And that is what truly earns respect, when you show that your emotional world has a gate and not everyone gets to walk through it carelessly. A boundary is not a wall, it's a filter. It doesn't isolate you, it protects your peace. And a filter must be clear to be effective. That's why emotional chaos doesn't create strong boundaries. It creates confusion. People don't respect what feels unstable, but they will always respond to what feels settled and unwavering. In Eastern philosophy, there's a teaching about water. Water is soft, fluid, yielding, and yet, over time, it carves through mountains. That is the essence of feminine communication. It does not need to overpower to be effective. Its very presence, when aligned with clarity and intention, shapes the environment around it. Let me share a story that brings this to life. A woman named Amina worked in a high-pressure environment where her male colleagues often interrupted her. For years, she tried to be more assertive, speaking louder, talking faster, trying to match their pace. But nothing changed. One day, she tried something different. When interrupted, she paused, made eye contact, and said, "I'll continue when you're finished." That's it. No anger, no sarcasm, just calm presence. It only took 2 meetings for the interruptions to stop. Why? Because her sentence came from a place of internal authority, not insecurity. She didn't fight for respect. She claimed it through clarity. This kind of communication is not something you learn overnight. It comes from inner work, emotional mastery, breath work, body awareness. You begin to sense your emotions before they erupt. You start observing your triggers rather than reacting from them. You become the observer of your own mind. And from that higher perspective, your words become chosen, not charged. A woman who can calmly say one sentence that reflects her boundaries is not just respected, she is remembered. Because very few people can resist reacting. Very few people have trained their nervous system to stay grounded while standing up for themselves. And when a man meets such a woman, something in him shifts. He begins to realize he cannot manipulate her emotions because she governs them. That is where respect is born. Let us now consider a deeper truth. Men do not respect words alone. They respect congruence. When your words match your actions and your actions match your energy, you become trustworthy. And trust is the seed of respect. When a woman says, "I won't tolerate being spoken to disrespectfully," but continues to entertain conversations that drain her, her words become hollow. But when that same woman speaks softly, walks away when necessary, and continues her life in peace, she becomes unforgettable. She is no longer trying to be liked. She is living her standards. This is not about being emotionless. It is about being emotionally masterful. The difference is immense. Emotional suppression is silence rooted in fear. Emotional mastery is silence rooted in strength. One hides, the other leads. There is a sentence every woman must learn to speak, not just aloud, but inwardly. That sentence is, "My peace is more important than his attention." When you internalize that truth, your energy changes. your voice slows down, your nervous system relaxes, and your presence begins to do the speaking for you. Men are more attuned to emotional vibration than they're often given credit for. When you shift your energy from desperation to detachment, not coldness, but peaceful detachment, his subconscious registers it. Respect follows. It doesn't always come immediately, but it always comes when your energy says, I'm no longer available for what dishonors me. It's worth remembering that love without respect is not love. It is possession, and possession without boundaries becomes control. A man who cannot respect your calm clarity will not value your love. But when your love is protected by emotional boundaries, it becomes a force. It becomes something he has to rise to meet. In this way, one sentence becomes a threshold, a line in the sand that defines who you are and what you allow. But it is the energy behind that sentence that makes it powerful. If you say it through tears and panic, it may still be heard. But if you say it through serenity and centeredness, it will echo. There is an old Zen saying, say only what cannot be improved by silence. This principle applies deeply to feminine communication. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is speak once, clearly, and then say no more. Your silence after your boundary becomes a mirror. In that stillness, he must see himself and decide whether he will rise or retreat. Now imagine this: a man says something sarcastic to diminish your confidence. Instead of reacting emotionally or defending yourself, you look him in the eyes and say, you're free to speak to me how you choose. I'm free to respond accordingly. And you walk away. You didn't attack. You didn't absorb. You simply stood. That moment lingers in his mind, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't allow to move you. This is the beginning of feminine power, not in overpowering him, but in anchoring yourself. When you no longer need to convince a man of your worth, your presence starts to reveal it. And that is the essence of saying one thing once and being respected forever. When a woman expresses herself clearly and respectfully, without bending or breaking her truth to fit another person's expectations, something incredible happens. She is seen, not just noticed. There is a distinct difference between being observed and being truly perceived. The first is superficial, fleeting, reactive. The second is deeper. It evokes reflection. It challenges the other person to step into presence and meet her there. One of the most quietly powerful ways a woman earns lasting respect is through clear, non-negotiable communication, especially when it's not accompanied by aggression, but by grounded emotional clarity. This kind of communication isn't about dominating a man or controlling a relationship. It's about aligning her words with her values, making her boundaries known, and allowing her presence to speak before she ever raises her voice. A woman who can look someone in the eye and say, I don't allow that energy into my life, is not trying to intimidate. She's just telling the truth. Her truth. And in that truth lies her power. In many relationships, especially romantic ones, communication can become diluted. People start performing roles instead of having honest exchanges. A woman may suppress her intuition to avoid seeming difficult. A man may withdraw to avoid confrontation. And so the relationship begins to lose its vitality, not because love is missing, but because authenticity is. Communication rooted in clarity restores vitality, and it doesn't require fancy language or complicated therapy speak. It requires presence, honesty, and a willingness to be misunderstood without losing your center. Consider a woman named Elena. She had been dating a man for 6 months. In many ways, it was good. There was laughter, shared interests, a sense of emotional safety. But there was also a recurring issue. He would occasionally disappear. No explanation, no response to messages, for 2 or 3 days at a time. Then he'd return as if nothing